Welcome in, Loons fans, to another edition of the Matchday preview. Jonathan Harrison here, joined once again by Manny Lagos. Manny, how are we doing on this early week edition of the recording? How are we doing?
I'm mixed feelings. I'm excited about the show, excited about our guest. I'm excited about, the drama. If we don't take away Minnesota United, there's a lot of good, both league and Leagues Cup drama to talk about. I'm bummed. I don't usually do predictions, but I thought I was going to wake up today with us winning and San Diego losing and us being tied in 2 weeks for the Battle of the West. And unfortunately, we didn't quite get there. And then San Diego just keeps on churning, man. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Unbelievable story. You'll notice the difference, podcast listeners and YouTube viewers. We are not out at the State Fair. We don't have any fried foods in front of us. We do have a special guest, Tom Bogert of Give Me Sport, where he does his writing, Soccer Wise, where he does his podcasting, and CBS Sports Golazo, where he does his TVing, or however you want to pronounce that. Do that one. Tom, how are you doing?
I was told there was going to be fried food from the State Fair, so I'm disappointed.
Yeah, this is a tough day, Tom. With State Fair's over now, it's been 10 days of fried food. We're kind of recovering now, so yep. It's a good one. Have you ever been to the Minnesota State Fair?
I have not. It looks delightful, and particularly seeing some of the stuff that your club put out, I was just very, very jealous. I want to try everything.
We're very proud in a weird way. So
it is a task trying every new food. They come out with 50 new foods every year, and you don't know where they get these ideas for the new foods. But there's ice cream beer now, so that's a thing that they invented for the State Fair. So it's a glorious time. You got to get out here for the State Fair at least once in your lifetime. Let's jump into. We've got plenty to discuss. Let's jump into the big drama of the weekend, though. Inter Miami getting soundly beat by Seattle 3-0. This was one of the more impressive performances we've ever seen from a Seattle squad that has had to do a lot of chopping and changing this season, Tom. This was an impressive performance. We'll get to the fighting of it all afterwards, but Seattle with a big 3-0 win in a final over Inter Miami, completing the trophy case, as you will.
Yeah, the Seattle Sounders team is awesome, and that performance was everything that we kind of thought they were capable of at the beginning of the season, and then this is everything that they've shown that they are over the last 2 months or so. Going back to the Club World Cup, they didn't get, I don't think, any results, but they won a lot of plaudits along the way for how well they played in just an impossible group. And then they go to the Leagues Cup and they just dismantle every Liga MX team in front of them. And since that they've put Pedro de la Vega on the left wing, even without Albert Rusnak, even without Jordan Morris, even with some other injury struggles that they've had, Paul Arriola was supposed to be a real regular part of this team. He's been gone essentially the entire season. This team is hitting their peak, and they showed that against Miami. They were completely dominant. That 3-0 final score, I think, was a really fair reflection of the match. If it did end up 1-0, though Miami did have a couple chances when it was 1-0, I don't think 1-0 would have been a fair reflection for just how dominant Seattle were. Even when Miami was in possession, it felt Seattle were completely comfortable and in control. Again, save for a few moments where, Messi should have scored, but right, like those things happen over a 90-minute game. On the balance, it was just a complete domination by the Seattle Sounders, and you look at what that team is made up by of, yeah, like they spent big on Pedro de la Vega, that they traded for Jesus Ferrer within the league. But, Jackson Reagan is somebody who came through the second team. Obed Vargas comes through the academy, and Paul Rothrock. You go on down the list, and it's just a masterclass of roster building.
Manny, it was a really good performance, outstanding performance overall from a Seattle side that has lost just once since losing to PSG in the Club World Cup. I won't name that team, though it's on Manny and I's uniforms or outfits today, who that team was, but we'll get to that a little bit later on. But Manny, this was a really outstanding performance from a Seattle side, a kind of a tone-setting performance for the rest of the season for Seattle side that is really trying to stake its claim at the top of the Western Conference.
Yeah, I'm kind of crabby because we have this guest today who's a neutral soccer expert. He's going to be great. The show is going to be great because the show is not just about Minnesota United. It's about global soccer, MLS, U.S. soccer, whatever we want to talk about. So before I go to my positive Seattle, I will throw out a lament that they had a lot of home games in the League Cup in their run. And again, I have to do that because I'm a homer fan of Minnesota United, but I'll end there. That's my one thing, is that they did get to play most of their games outside of one, I think, at home, and they were dominant. But we also, in between that Leagues Cup, we played them here, and they were outstanding. And we had to fight tooth and nail to get that 1-0 win. We swept them this year, and it was a big deal for us. But the reality is, when we got to see them live, we saw a team that is organized, that is structured. And I said this earlier in the year to you, Jonathan. Like, I'm older. There was a Team America in the NSL. Seattle is, my pride is even bigger for them because they're doing it with American players. They're building their team around bringing up American players, playing American players. Certainly, we mentioned Pedro de la Vega and their patience of getting him fit and healthy and finding a position. Very few MLS teams have that patience when they sign bigger DPs, and it's a credit to them because they clearly every year don't panic. They figure out a way to get a group of, I would say, 6 to 18 guys ready to play in their system within the way that they want to play. And they looked great. I mean, I cannot say more. I mean, they didn't even have, when seeing Di Rosario pop up in the last month now, Musaski, who wasn't even there, was amazing for the last 2 months. Rothrock, Georgetown kid, book nerd, unbelievable, just going at it. Like, it's hard because you look at that and there is a good argument that they've just won another trophy. And probably, the Galaxy and DC have a good claim about how many MLS Cups they've won. But Seattle over the last, decade or so, or maybe 15 years, Tom, probably the most dominant team now, maybe for trophies, at least.
Yeah, again, like this was the team that reset what it meant to be an expansion team. They were, we look at Atlanta United and LAFC when they came into the league and how pyrotechnic and how they were like, no, we don't need to be bad at first. We're just going to be good immediately and we're going to change a lot of things. Seattle did that 10 years before those two teams did. So it is fitting that Seattle were the first team to win the CONCACAF Champions Cup in this iteration for an MLS team. It is fitting that they're the first to kind of complete the trophy cabinet. And no, they don't have the MLS Cups that the Galaxy or DC United do, but hey, man, they're on their way, and they've got a really, really full trophy cabinet as well. And like a lot of credit should be going and is going to Brian Schmetzer. I think he's a guy who maybe gets a little overlooked because he doesn't have, he doesn't talk flowery about his tactics. He doesn't come up with these, new concepts and stuff. And like, again, Wilfried Nancy, he's one of the best coaches in the league. The things he does with that team, it was really clear, like, oh my God, this is an incredible coach when he was in Montreal and then to Columbus. Brian Schmetzer, it's a bit more of a slow burn because what he does great is he puts his best players in the best spots to succeed. And that's not a backhanded comment in any way because that is a sign of tactical and emotional, honestly, intelligence for building a team. He's so secure, he does not need to show you, hey man, I'm going to invert my right back or whatever, right? Like these things that can work, but sometimes if you're overcomplicating things, it's to a detriment. And his tactical nuance is really strong because different iterations of this team has played in different ways. There was a few years ago when they went to a back three because of injuries. Nuhu was the best like wide center back in the league when that was starting to become a trend. And right now they're changing, again, they mostly are playing with the typical kind of 4-2-3-1 or 4-2-3-1-ish. Again, when in that game that you guys beat them, it was a back three. That's a lot from Brian Schmetzer in terms of being able to change that and keep the core principles. And lastly, like his evolution of 5 years ago, the knock on him was he didn't trust younger players or he wasn't bringing that many younger players along. Look, like we said off the top, how many kids are coming through the second team that have been playing this year, have been playing last year, so that they're ready in this final. You go back to Obed Vargas at 16 years old, getting subbed in the CONCACAF Champions Cup final and looking like a 28-year-old, right? And again, there are players who are going to be special, whether I'm coaching them or whether the smartest minds in the world are coaching them. And maybe Obed's one of those. But you look around this team at Osaze de Rosario, what a story. Obviously, the Roldans and everything they do. Rothrock, Georgie Manungu, going all the way down the list. Like, these guys are in the positions they are because the club developed them. And that was like the one thing that they weren't necessarily lacking, but it wasn't like a calling card of this team. And now they're also doing that. So, again, I can't say enough good things about Brian Schmetzer and the work that him and his staff have done.
I like that you brought up Brian Schmetzer. I like to remind people, every year is a new story. In fact, like we're all actually global fans. So we're kind of looking at the Premier League. We're looking at like doesn't matter. The roster is the roster, the coaches are coaches, but you still, within that story of the year, you have to build a group and win. And Brian every year understands it doesn't start at the beginning of the year. I'm going to build a group that's competitive by the end of the year, that's hungry to play well, be organized, be structured, to have good individuals, to have good collective outputs through habits and training. So again, I think you're right. I think there is a lot of credit. And again, I bring it up. It's an American coach. There's a lot of ways to solve how to compete and how to grow in this global game. But it's kind of cool to see an American coach now become one of the iconic coaches of the league, when most of the teams are maybe saying, we'll see if Americans, we might go somewhere else. So, and then you brought up one name again, and I do it every time. Christian Roldan blows my mind.
Oh,
For Schmetzer to understand his qualities early on and develop him and make him a leader and build a team around somebody who just makes the right decisions in a game is brave. Because a lot of times you just want to go for that flashy player that's a great skill and a great touch or gives you the goals and the assists. But really, he's put his faith in, like, this guy every game makes the good decisions for the good of the team. I'm going to build around that. And he has been one of my favorite players by far in MLS history, because he gets everything out of everything about his body, about how he goes about the game. Unbelievable. And I was really happy to see him score, because he deserves it. I mean, he deserves a little bit more of people remind him how good of a player he is.
Yeah, he's one of our favorite players that we talk about on this podcast a lot. Now switching over to looking at Miami, what's gone wrong? I guess what goes wrong for them in finals? They've been to a ton of finals, especially Leagues Cup finals. It feels like they've been there every single year, but they've only won once. And you saw it all break down after the match, and we can talk about that as well. But clearly something Seattle did a lot to really frustrate them. A lot of was pinpointed on the physicality that they played with against Messi, when shortly after Messi passed the ball, there was a lot of pushing and physical shoves against him. But what went wrong for Miami on Sunday night, Tom?
So for me, what you need to do against Miami is make them work defensively, right? Because you talk about their incredible strengths going forward. That's obviously around Lionel Messi, what Luis Suarez does. Busquets starting possession sequences deep, and Jordi Alba pushing up as a wide midfielder or a winger at times from left back. So first things first, you try to make Messi or Suarez run, or you just use the space that they're not covering, because that's not their game. Really, like Suarez could press when he was younger, but isn't really Messi's game, right? And then the other one you do is when Jordi Alba is pushing forward, because he's such an integral part of that attack, is if there's a quick transition into that left defensive flank for Miami, you hit that. So it's a combination of really good, really long possession sequences that tire Miami out. And the more you pass it around, if you're defending with two less players, there are going to be gaps. You just have to be patient and confident enough to wait for it and attack it when they present themselves. So Seattle has done that really well all season long. That's a really bad matchup for Miami. And then, like, all that is to say, too, there were still some really special moments in that Miami attack. Again, when it was 1-0, Suarez with an excellent little deft flick through for Messi. Then Messi puts it over. That's a chance he scores much more often than not. And there were some others where this could have easily been 1-1, and I'd still be saying it feels like Seattle dominated. How is the game level? But that's just kind of how Miami plays. And then, yeah, if we want to talk about the post game stuff, it's just disgraceful. It's cowardice. That's straight up cowardice. Like, starting with Suarez, like, even before spitting on somebody, which I don't need to be here to tell you how vile and gross that is. But, like, the game ended. They got waxed 3-0. He immediately runs up to Obed Vargas and is just jawing at him and putting his arms on his, like, head and neck shoulder area, like doing the thing that the dark arts thing you do, where you're, like, touching somebody's neck, probably squeezing a little bit, right? Like, oh, I'm not, like, swinging at him, but you're clearly escalating something, to the point where multiple teammates had to come over to try to disengage that. That was the first escalation. Sergio Busquets comes over, and it wasn't like a full-blown punch, but he made a fist and made contact with Obed Vargas in the face, which kicked everything off. And then you have guys who weren't even playing for Miami coming off the bench, put, like, I think it was Weingart that put a Seattle player in a headlock and was refusing to let go. Like, somebody tried, I think it was Aviles who tried on Jackson Reagan, and Jackson Reagan just tossed him away. I mean, it's just cowardice, man. Like, I'm all for fight on the pitch. Look, if you come in a little late, if it's a little physical, things happen between the white lines, right? As long as it's not overtly dirty, like, yeah, sometimes those lines get blurred. For all that to come after the game, it's just so weak, man. It's just so weak.
Do we expect any, or what? I mean, obviously there are going to be repercussions from it. What do we expect? Is that just going to be held to just Leagues Cup play, or is there going to be some consequences in MLS action? Because it feels like there should be with what we saw on Sunday and how weak, cowardly, disgusting it was. You don't want to see that, especially in a final where you know you have a ton of eyeballs on you on national television, and you just see that after the match. And what should be a resounding moment for Seattle gets overtaken. I would imagine there would have to be some consequences in MLS play, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure, honestly. So I've actually asked that question to some folks this morning, literally right before we got on the show. Don't have an answer yet. I know that the Leagues Cup organizing committee is currently working through and doing their processes that will result in whatever repercussions that come. But like Leagues Cup is its own competition. Again, I don't have a definitive answer from MLS yet on if they are considering further punishment in MLS play because, like, look, I kind of liken it to like Clint Dempsey got a red card and tore up the referee's notebook. And this year he was retiring, and then he was suspended, forever from the Open Cup. And it was like, cool, he wasn't going to play in that anyway. You think about this was the final of the League Cup. There's obviously no more League Cup game this season. Well, are Suarez and Busquets? Neither of them are under contract yet for next year. Are they coming and those were the two main characters of this melee. It would feel an injustice if it's like, Suarez, you're suspended for 10 games from the Leagues Cup. And he's like, all right, cool, I was going to retire anyway, right? Like, so I don't know at this stage, but it is a question I've asked, and I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, especially because 18 days
let
from
us
now.
know when you find out, because that is the question. The MLS and League MX own this entity, so it is part of the sphere of MLS regular league and Leagues Cup. So that'll probably be a big question.
Yeah, and CONCACAF being involved with their giving away. Like, you can earn qualification to the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Is there a way to go there? So again, I don't know. This is all speculation on my end. And again, I don't know what they can or what they can't do. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because 18 days from now, those two teams meet again in South Florida for MLS regular season play. So, the emotions and tensions will still be ratcheted up after that. Let's jump forward here.
Jonathan, wait, I don't think I got it. I have a little bit more.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, it just was so impactful and so kind of raw in a way that didn't, I think it just doesn't help Miami's brand right now. Like, I think that situation, and I don't know if they realize it or if their leadership, hopefully they're starting to kind of take a deep breath and say, hey, what are we trying to build and grow in the long term? What kind of brand? And it really starts with the culture and environment you're trying to create. And I bring that up because you brought up a little bit about the game. And I think this is the big question about Miami. I love Miami. I can love Messi. I want to watch him 24/7. And we're now starting to see that there's a grind that comes with a playoff run, or kind of Leagues Cup is this tight playoff thing. And you got a lot of games, and you got a lot of pressure and a lot of stress. You got a lot of old legs that have to go from one to the next. And I was really impressed how they grinded out the win in Orlando. That was tough. Orlando was a good team on a good day, and they needed the greatest player of all time to step up and will them through. But that probably wasn't enough to do 2 games in a row based on these guys are old now, the legs are there. And I just get a sense that there's this extra stress about they're supposed to win everything and be emotional in South America and be just, it feels like a lot. And it feels like they better think about what do they want to be going into the playoffs, which is only in 6 weeks, because the playoffs comes at you hard. It's not like a limp in Europe to the finish line with your league and you can kind of, get X points and kind of get this final day. You have to be at your best by the end of the playoffs. And I think Sunday showed what MLS kind of is, and that, that's what Brian does so well. He's building his group to be like, we looked at that lineup and there could have been different guys playing. There's something there with Miami, though, that I think there's not on this show, but I think it warrants, the culture and environment there, I think can be debated right now. And is it kind of getting too many old guys who are, acting out because they're frustrated at their age, or they're not building the right guys around Messi based on needing a little bit more structure and shape to not get exposed. I don't know, but overall, I've got a bad taste for how they behave, for the brand of Miami right now. I think is really hurt, and I think even for MLS, we've got to really think about making sure they do it the right way, because we don't want to make a club or even Messi bigger than the league core values. So that's it. I just want to make sure I got that out there.
Is that where the roster construction question comes in? Because I know there's been a lot of questions about how Miami have constructed their roster, not just from the amount of top end players that they have, but how they've moved out a lot of their MLS regulars, or going back to your point, Manny, and how Seattle built their roster with a lot of Americans and a lot of MLS guys.
Yeah,
Miami
no,
kind of
Tom,
shipped a lot of those guys out this year.
yeah, I was trying to allude to even like giving people a little back into like things are even bigger than that when you're trying to build a club and grow a club. And you can't just be anointed to be champion. You have to work at it, not only on the field, not only with the sporting staff, the entire club, the front office, the alignment of the sporting staff, the alignment of the GM, or the alignment of your CEO, the alignment of the owners. So I'm just pointing out, I don't know for sure, but I felt like it feels chaotic and it feels emotional. It feels like the leadership discussion might not just be to your level of just the roster build. The leadership discussion says, what are they doing from the top to maybe create this emotional kind of stress to act out that way? And I think it's a good question to say, hey, Maya, what are you trying to do? And again, that goes all the way to ownership group. I mean, there's a level of alignment here that I'm saying, yeah, you should win. But the awesome thing about the sport is you don't just anoint it. You have to like do it on the field. So I guess my discussion, it's partly roster build, but it feels even a little bit bigger, if I'm being honest. I mean, even the chaos of how the in and out of the GMs over the last couple of years, it's, again, I'm careful here because they're so good. And we've got the greatest player of all time, which in my brain, I'm just like, yeah, he could will anything to win championships. But I do think the brand has woke up worse today. And I think people like Tom maybe aren't just going to ask questions about is Busquets and Suarez too old, but more about what is the leadership alignment and is it right? And are they accountable for these guys' behavior?
Yeah, that's certainly something that is coming from the fallout this weekend. Like even just anecdotally looking at a lot of, like when other teams or fans of other teams in the league or saying, oh, like the rules or whatever, like when with this team becoming the Cowboys or the villain or whatever, right? Like Miami fans would be, the normal sports banter of just like, oh, stop crying, like, whatever, like we're better than you, like again, all in good natured kind of stuff. After this weekend, I've seen a lot of like fan accounts who are like, this is unacceptable. Like it seems to tie that like this was very like, again, you don't need an expert to say, what's a step too far? Probably spitting in an old man's face is probably not close to the line. But all it is to say is that this wasn't like where sports fans, again, I'm including myself in this because that's how you get in all of this by caring a lot about sports, and particularly in my younger days. Like I even talk about Luis Suarez, one of my favorite players of all time. So I was Liverpool fan, right? I tried to justify every single thing he's ever done that wasn't super great, right? I thought this was telling that there was a lot of fans who were just like, nope. Like even through the like rose-colored glasses of your own fandom, and you see things like every ref's out to get you, every league's out to get you, all of this, right? Even in that context, it was like no, like that was like they were a part of the pylon, which is I think interesting and something, Manny, to your point about like what is the club doing, what is the club trying to build, and who are they trying to build it for? Like those are the people that you're trying to build it for.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic and interesting debate that's been had over the past couple days, past couple hours after that final. Let's jump into a little bit less controversial of a window or a topic here. Transfer window. We're not going to talk about Isaac going to Liverpool. I know you want to talk all about that, Tom, as a Liverpool fan. Let's go back to Minnesota United, which I know a lot of Minnesota United fans listening to this will be thankful for. Tom, your thoughts on the overall window from Minnesota United this summer?
I thought it was really strong. And in one breath, you can be like, well, they lost Tanny Oluwaseyi and how important and how great he is. And again, he's awesome. I think that they struck a good balance of like, it's time for Tanny. He's earned this. And this is something he wants. Dream move, Villarreal. It's tough to say no. While also keeping Pereira, which, maybe like... I've defended that and said like, yeah, like they're trying to gear up for the playoffs. And it's like, well, if you're only trying to gear up for the playoffs, then why would Oluwaseyi leave? And I think it has to be case by case basis. And that is an important part of building a club. That being said, I love the Dominic Fitz signing. I think he's going to help with some final third, like creativity, unlocking the key, final pass stuff. I was talking to a sporting executive at a club in Europe who's just, familiar with MLS. And like they texted me, was like, oh, wow, like that was a good signing. Like you look at his profile, his numbers, he had like 29 goal contributions last year in Austria. That usually translates well to this league. You think about what Ty Baribo did in that league. Dejan Jovic in that league. There is a pattern of if you succeed and play really well over there in the Austrian league, that will translate to MLS. I was also talking to that executive. They're like, by the way, he's one of the best set piece deliverers like that come on our radar, for, realistic for an MLS team to sign. So I love the idea of going strength to strength and not just, hoping to fill a little bit of a creativity void or giving another angle in the final third, but also, hey, we're the best team in MLS at set pieces. Let's go get another incredible set piece taker. So at any point, you're going to have Pereira, Fitz, Gressel, any box all for long throws, right? All of these players, it's not like, oh, like Gressel's not starting today, we don't have a great right-footed set piece taker. It's like, well, we got 3 or 4 different elite options. So that's the move I like the most. I really like Mamadou Dieng. People who read numbers better than I do have told me that like his underlying numbers in the USL Championship are really, really strong. Like a Taniolo say, like some of these other players who have made the jump that again, he's 21, so he's not a late bloomer, but there have been some guys who are a little bit later bloomers that have come through the league, and it's like, oh yeah, he's following their path. So those are the 2 signings that I like the most.
Manny, your overall thoughts on how the club did this window?
Oh, I just enjoy listening to Tom talk about. Yeah, I think I discussed it before, but the Tani one, and I try to give a little bit more, kind of inside. Like the reality of this business is too, when a Champions League club comes to you, and a kid like that has an opportunity to go there. The goal is to for the good of the club as well, by the way. I think we will reap the benefits of many new signings over the multiple years now because of this transaction. But I think it is the most important transaction probably in club history. Obviously, financially, it's the biggest, but it really wasn't about the money. It's about it was the right time because the player's going to be happy. We have a strong team, like you mentioned. We could add players here. We have different systems we can use because we're at the time of the year where we're knocking wood in the playoffs and hopefully going to get a top seed. But now we can build not knowing that Tani's gone and seeing where it goes. With the transfer, the Fitz one is the on paper right away, somebody that can help, particularly in the box midfield, or even if he wants to play 2 up top. So there'll be some fun stuff for Eric now to really think about how he wants to manage. But probably not too much will go away from the back 5 this year or back 3, or want to say it. But from a 2 forward system to a box midfield, we'll see. But it allows that flexibility again. I think the Deng one for me, when we go to, I'm more excited because of the eye test now. I mean, obviously, you mentioned the numbers, and it's exciting to sign kind of a young guy like Tani Olashey. But then we got to see a game this weekend where first touch was outstanding. He held the ball up. He was certainly in on the buildup of pulling out the Portland defenders for the goal. So I agree. I'm really excited. I think the other part of the window I'm excited about is the long term. Farina gets me excited because I do think MLS teams have to become more complicated or complex in terms of thinking short and long term. And I think this is a really exciting, fun. Cerro Porteño is a great development club in Paraguay. I'm excited for the long term of us thinking about that with a couple of our these window signings. So, and I'm going to finish up with Tom's mentioning the set pieces. On the other end, we got Triantes. So now late in the game, we got another huge guy who can come in. If you throw Dugan in there, we could have a huge set piece explosion at the end of the year as well, which we've done so well already. But Triantes is a big boy as well.
Hey students, need a study break? If you got a .edu email address, we've got deals for you. Sign up for our student deals program to be notified of ticket offerings as low as $20 for various Minnesota United home games. Visit MNUFC.com to learn more. Yeah, it's I like these moves. Especially the ones that are going to fit in this window to help this team out down the stretch here. Overall, Tom, who were the winners for you across the league in the transfer window, and then maybe on the back end of that, on the opposite end, who go through or come out of that window looking like, man, we definitely didn't help ourselves going into the final 5-6 games of the season?
Yeah, I'm for me, LAFC, I thought had the best one, and I don't want to be reductive about like, well, they just signed Son Heung-min, though that on its own could be, because I look up for summer transfer windows, it's less about an overhaul and more about who's already good and has the chance to be trophy contenders and who just solidified that or moved forward. And LAFC, again, just Son Heung-min in and of itself, the historic nature of that signing is enough to get it there. But beyond that, Canadian international Mathieu Choinière, Irish international Andrew Moran, Scottish international Ryan Porteous, Romanian international Alexandru Baluta. Like, that's five new players, one of which is the new league record signing, one of which is MLS proven, another's a Scotland international center back, and then Moran is, their biggest issue I thought was midfield creativity, and maybe he solves that, and then they get another international winger. So that's five new players led by the most expensive signing in league history, and that's going to do it for me. And then, again, not pandering because I'm on this podcast. I do like what Minnesota did, but FC Cincinnati I thought had a really good window. Vancouver Whitecaps, of course, and Portland Timbers as well. They are a team that definitely got better. I think that they're closer to the top four in the West, but not on the same level as San Diego, Minnesota, Seattle, LAFC, and Vancouver. Sorry. Yeah.
It's going to be a. Go ahead, Manny.
No, I was just going to Tom. I think you're right. I think in the short term, the early questions, and it's a fun soccer talk about Son and Boyanga, and obviously I think that Son I didn't get to watch the game actually, the late night game, San Diego. But was Son playing as a number 9, false 9 or 9-ish?
Yeah, he's mostly been playing centrally, but his ability, there's a lot of freedom there, and whoever's playing on the right wing, particularly if the other winger is Ordaz, they move around a lot.
Oh, they do. So the front three can move. Then they'll just take time. But I will say it's going to be interesting because I still think Son's a winger at the end of the day. He's really been as effective as a 9. So the moment you have these signings, you still have to have a coach that really figures out, get the best out of them. And the interesting thing about this window is I think the one criticism you could say on Minnesota, which is fair, we left it late. It's such a long window. And it's a really short end of we're still waiting on these. We should be good for a lot of our guys for San Diego, but earlier signing the windows can sometimes help if you're talking about immediate stuff for this year. I think a lot of our signings now are really for the future because they're towards the later window. We have 5 games left. So that's another interesting part of this window where you've got to have it. If it's about this year, that's important, but really a lot of them are for the future as well.
Especially in 2012 in specific, this was by the time the window opened, the least remaining games in the season that I can remember. Again, I don't know if that's 100%, but it is definitely shorter runway than previous years. And I think we saw that, even you talk about Seattle, you think about the 2016, the Lodero season, you think about, they seem to always leave a DP spot open if they had one for the summer and would just wait. And they haven't been doing that, right? There was a lot of, Atlanta United, I know it didn't work out for them, but they spent as much as they could in the winter because it's all right, we can't really wait until there's 9 games left. And that's 9 games if you get a deal done on day 1 of the window. And also the player's been in training and the visa came through and he's ready to go. That was the best case scenario. Whereas, Manny, as you say, for many more teams, you're still waiting on visas. You think about the Red Bulls. They signed a player in July. He debuted this weekend because he just got his visa, right? You can't control that, but you can control winter signings, in terms of looking at the entire season. So I thought that was definitely a story of the transactional nature of this MLS season.
Does everyone not just have the same visa guy as LAFC to get some through in 3 days?
I think when you're in that stratosphere of fame and notoriety, it comes a little quicker.
Yeah, it is context in the government, John, but it really is when you're that kind of a national symbol. It's much easier level. And Mueller falls in that.
Yeah.
So
Rodrigo de Paul as well.
that one more is maybe they had some help.
All right, let's go back to the action at the weekend. Leagues Cup action as well. Third place game, probably the most important third place game to ever be played across world soccer, with the CONCACAF Champions Cup spot on the line between LA Galaxy and Orlando. And of course, it's the LA Galaxy, Tom, in the midst of their worst season in club history, securing a spot in CONCACAF Champions Cup action next season. Just Galaxy things, of course.
Good for them, honestly, like fighting and continuing, right? Like this reminds me of Kansas City last year. They were very bad and
Yeah.
they got to the Open Cup final. That's what I love about soccer. Like there's just different ways to, there is no binary like the American sports thing. It's like, well, if you won the championship or that's it, that's it. Like there are different ways to be successful and have a good season. Again, it's not a good season, but I was talking to somebody at the Galaxy before their semifinal and they were like, dude, if we could qualify for next year's Champions Cup with this disaster of a season, like my God, like what a nice little silver lining. So good for them for getting that. And again, I bet that they'll be. Guess what? Ricky Pooch will be back next season, so they'll probably be pretty strong.
Yeah, absolutely. Elsewhere across the league at the weekend, a top end Eastern Conference clash: Philadelphia at Cincinnati, and Man U's Philadelphia coming away with a 1-0 win, hard fought win. The only thing that really felt like it separated them was Cincinnati's poor play out of the back that kind of keyed that first or the only goal of the match. But Philadelphia coming away with a huge win that regains their spot atop the Supporters Shield and atop the Eastern Conference, Manny.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun as a fan to watch the East and the battles and these teams kind of ebb and flow in terms of their qualities. And, what a great result for Philly. Is that 2-1-0 losses at home for Cincinnati as well?
I believe it's 3. There was definitely, yeah, it's Charlotte, NYCFC, Philly. Very disappointing for Cincinnati. I thought that they were going to be kicking on at this point, and they've kind of taken a step back.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it's Philly. I bring up Philly because, again, we don't want the identity of Philly, but there's some similar type spending teams, like kind of teams that have built some identity. That gets me excited for the league in a sense that my Minnesota side comes out where we can be competitive. We can do it. We can figure it out. I don't want to be Philly. They're Philly. They play a different way, but this league is awesome in that, like, you know what? You don't have to have all the money. Certainly Cincinnati is going for the spend world, which looks impressive, is great, but they just got beat again by a team that kind of figures it out through identity.
Yeah, it's an interesting battle at the top. Tom, is anybody going to be able to catch Philadelphia in the East? I know Miami have 4 games in on hand on everybody, so they have the ability to do it, but can they?
I'd be doubtful for Miami. I just think that there's too many ways for them to slip up. Though I did say this last year when they were chasing the league record points, and I was like, and then they would score a winner in the 88th minute against Atlanta or somebody where it's just like, oh man. So yeah, like Philly, my worry about Philly was that their record against the teams they were supposed to beat was really, really strong. Their record against the better teams in the league wasn't quite there. So it was like, okay, if they beat who they're supposed to beat, they should win the Shield. They dropped points in a game that they shouldn't have. And then they come back and then they beat Cincy and like they did prove that, like, oh no, like we can beat, like we do beat really good teams too. We don't just kind of beat up on the teams that are below us. So it's Phillies to lose. San Diego, though, they have the game against you guys, though it is at home. That's a difficult one. But after that, they have Atlanta, San Jose, Houston, Portland. It's not the easiest finish to the season, whereas Philly has Vancouver, New England, DC, NYC, Charlotte. Like those are pretty comparable, and those two right there, and those two are in the driver's seats for sure. And again, there can be some late drama from Minnesota. From again, if Cincy, I wouldn't be shocked if Cincy wins their last 5 games because they have that much talent and it's such a great coaching staff and everything else that they have. But for right now, it's firmly Philly and San Diego.
I'll come back to the San Diego LAFC game in a little bit when we talk about that game for Minnesota coming up in a little bit. I do want to focus now on Minnesota. Portland 1-1 draw with maybe the best goal you'll see from Robin Lod, and he's got plenty of them in his bag for sure. But late equalizer for the Loons in that one after giving up an own goal in the 79th minute. Tom, overall thoughts on how the Loons played against Portland on Saturday, but from a national perspective, your thoughts on how the Loons have played this season, where they're at in the standings.
Yeah, so I was higher on Minnesota than most coming into the season. It's probably unfair to say that they've lived up to my expectations, but the broad strokes of like this team is going to be one of the best in the league defensively. The set pieces that Eric Ramsey was showing last year and the structure and everything, like I think the world of Eric Ramsey as a head coach. There are a lot of players in this group that I like, and I figured I was, the baseline, the floor of what Minnesota's, the bottom isn't going to fall out, right? There could be a disappointing season. Maybe the attack doesn't quite get there. Maybe some of the set pieces don't roll in. But my view was that I had Minnesota as a top 4 team in the West coming into the season. So I don't want to be dismissive and be like, yeah, no, this is exactly what they're supposed to, because they are one of the pleasant stories in the league. So the broad strokes of that is, yeah, one of the best defensive units, one of the best set pieces. That's a great recipe going into the postseason. Still need to figure out the final third malaise of when teams respected the transition opportunities and respected everything else that Minnesota throws at you. That, okay, we're going to sit deep, beat us with possession, beat us with intricate final third play, and they're never going to be 2014 Barcelona, right? Like that's fine, because there are different ways to beat. So if Fitz and maybe a reshaped attack here can unlock some of those things, apex contenders. They're in that top group with San Diego, with Philly, Cincy, whatever. And again, the worst case scenario, air quote, is that they might be just like a hair below and like a 1B type of tier. But this is a team that absolutely can win MLS Cup. And hey, depending on what happens against San Diego, maybe there's a late push in the Shield race, right? Like this is the highest praise I can give a team, is that they are alive in all of these trophy races.
Yeah, absolutely. Manny, your thoughts on what you saw from Minnesota on Saturday in a 1-1 draw against Portland?
I think it felt very playoffy. There was a super intensity to the game. It was very physical. I felt like both teams, had a lot more tackles, fair tackles, actually. I thought Portland extended the game a little bit by making more drama within those tackles, and that got me a little bit kind of irked. But I think that's what an away team does in the playoffs. So it felt very much like the intensity, but it also showed that like the quality in the final third drops when the intensity is that fast, and then you can't quite do it. And I say that on both sides. I think Tom said something early in the show. I thought Portland looked very athletic, very physical. Defensively, they gave up a goal, but now that's 1 goal in 2 games. So it feels like they're going on a good trajectory to try to make a run to be one of those teams that gets in the playoffs and is very dangerous. I felt like that type of team that we played. That made it hard for us, and I thought we played pretty well. I think I mentioned off record, I think Kelvin was just a little bit off. I think if he had been a little sharper, I think everything would have been a little bit I think we would have won the game, but I think it was a fair result. I think it would have been harsh if we lost that game. But I also give Portland credit for coming to town and really pushing us to our limit a little bit. And then lastly, I just love our goal. I mean, what a goal. Just
unbelievable.
Every year everybody talks about Robin Lod, always getting older and slower. And every year it's like his personality. He just keeps plugging away. You put him at different positions. And it was live seeing that goal is like soccer. I mean, the play, I mentioned Dang and the build-up, Momo, I call him, pulling out the defenders, going back to Will. And Will's good at hitting behind, but that's not his number one thing to do. But to see the space, the timing, and the touch by Robin, it was a huge goal. Great night, by the way, for Minnesota soccer, Tom. We had like that perfect fall, late summer.
I love it.
Guys were running hard. You could run all day. So it wasn't a game of a lot of chances, but I thought it was a proper soccer game in terms of the battle and intensity.
Yeah, Robin Lod with an excellent goal. As you said, Manny, this was an excellent night for soccer, a physical match between these two teams, as it's been between Minnesota and Portland. They're very physical, very intense matchups between these two teams, but you can't really talk enough about that Robin Lod goal, Tom. It was impressive technique, not just from Robin Lod to track the ball over his shoulder from 50 yards away. Excellent pass by Will Trapp, who's having an underrated season for Minnesota this year. But Robin Lod with the technique, the ability to play off the defender right on his back and then just take the shot all in one fluid motion. It was one of the more impressive goals you'll see in the league this season.
Yeah, like that touch is sublime. The way that he could track that over shoulder and pull it down and keep moving forward so the defender wasn't going to catch him. It's just, it's poetry. It's a work of art.
Yeah, it really was. They should do that slow-mo meme.
Give us the slow-mo angle of it that we got for Pedro de la Vega's goal in League's Cup play.
I mean, I won't go that nice.
No, it's not. It's not up to that level, but give us that angle of it. That'd be impressive. Speaking of Robin Lod, playing a little bit higher over the past couple of weeks, it seems to have kind of sparked him a little bit over the past couple of weeks, man. 2 goals, 1 assist in the last 2 games for Robin Lod, playing a little bit higher instead of dropping back alongside Will Trapp. Is this where we could see him the rest of the season, or with the inclusion of Dominic Fitz? Obviously, he might drop back into that midfield again, but it seems like he clearly steps up his game when he's a little bit higher up the field, closer to the attack.
Yeah, so I was saying to Jonathan, he really isn't playing higher necessarily. He's still playing next to Will Trapp. The difference is there's an extra midfielder. So really, essentially, when you have the two forwards, Tani and Yeboah, Robin was next to Will and then Pereira was kind of like your number 10, and it was like a triangle. And really, you're expecting Pereira and Yeboah and Tani to kind of solve and bring the wing backs forward, and Robin can go sometimes, but he's got to help Will there. Now, when you have the box midfield, you have an extra midfield in there. So now it really allows the wing backs maybe to get forward. It allows him to kind of get in the attack unnoticed. So he's going forward late, or he's arriving late, you could call it, or he sees space that he can drive into and feel comfortable that we have enough shape defensively, or he can leave. And I just think he's more comfortable when it's not the two forwards. And we have two offensive midfielders in front of him, because he feels a little more comfortable where like one can go, one can slip behind. So I just think, at least for now, again, that could shift. Funny enough, like mentioned, the new Fitz is going to be different than time. So that two forward system might bring out some of Robin's qualities as well. But I just think feels comfortable to go forward versus like he's being put higher up the field.
Yeah. You mentioned Calvin Yeboah, just one shot in 70 minutes. Not the best of performances from him. You'd want to see more. Now that there's especially more pressure on him. Now that Taniolo Ashe is gone, he's really the number one striker, number one forward for this team, without a doubt. Now that Oluwaseyi is gone, some pressure on Yeboah here going forward, Tom. But this is a guy that has produced it in the past. We saw it last year, pretty much dragging the Loons to the playoffs on his own with some incredible performances at the end of last season. He'll need to do that down the stretch here over the final 5 games.
Yeah. Again, I talk about a recipe for playoff success that starts with defensive structure and set pieces. The last angle of that is a dominant attacker, and maybe dominant, to what degree. What he was last year was absolutely, if you take that form and put it in this team right now, they're pushing even further ahead. So I think it's there. I don't think that he's been, a disappointment by any stretch here, but like he's somebody who has another level to get to in terms of form, and what better time than right now?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's hard to say that it's a disappointment when you've got 9 goals on the season. So
exactly.
I think he wasn't quite sharp in some areas of holding up the ball and little things, maybe decision making, but he also ran. He worked hard. He definitely is at a good point of the season in terms of fitness, in terms of playing within the shape that Eric wants, to make sure that we can have that defensive shape that we can counterattack or go forward. I will say, like I said, I being there live, I thought the intensity was notched up at a level that we're not always used to playing. And then those final third decisions maybe take a game or two at that intensity level. I get excited because that's what's going to happen in the playoffs, and more of our games that we play now towards the end of the year, we're going to have teams probably like Chicago up with a couple of weeks that these are probably playoff games for their lives. And we're going to have to be ready to kind of play at that intensity, no doubt for the rest of the season now, but for sure come playoff time.
Yeah, we speak about this team defensively. They had to come up big a couple times once again Saturday night. They weathered a storm by Portland, especially late in the second half, where Portland were hitting on the transition quite a bit throughout that second half. But defensively, standing tall, Dane St. Clair with another couple huge saves. Once again, Manny, defensively, this team came through in a big way against a Portland attack that has a lot of attackers.
I love going to game lives. I had no idea how fast Kelsey was. Oh my God.
that guy can move. He's a unit. He can move, man. That's a good player.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, the moment that game opened up just a little bit in that second half, they came at it. He was just ready to run at it. So caused us a lot of problems. Dane was great, though. I thought both goalies came up with 2 huge saves. Essentially, I thought, the save that on the chance with Pereira, and then Kelsey, Dane saving, it was really 2 goalies in 2 big moments.
Yeah, absolutely. That leads us to a big match coming up in a couple weeks' time. We'll preview that one a little bit more in depth next week here on the show. But Tom, San Diego, first place in the Western Conference, coming off a big win at LAFC, their 7th straight road win in league play. They have been excellent away from Snapdragon Stadium, a little bit more iffy of late there at home. So maybe that's something that the Loons can take advantage of. But this sets up for a massive Western Conference clash on a weekend. When you look at the rest of the schedule, there is a lot of top-end games across Major League Soccer coming up in 2 weeks' time.
I think, Jonathan, with having Tom on the show, we should really pick his brain out, because I did not see them beating LAFC on Son's home debut.
Whew.
And this team keeps on defying. Like, how are they doing it? They have such young defenders. Yeah, give us. It's big because the game in a couple of weeks is a 6-point game for us that could keep us battling for the West, or it could really say, no, we're going to be hopefully within the second or third. So curious for your thought.
First of all, these are the games that I love as like covering the league from a national perspective. Like you want games of consequence for the Shield race as late as you can. There's Vancouver and Philly, or two that comes to mind. That's about it. Like, since you're playing Nashville, but like when you get closer to like the last 3 or 4 weeks of the season, there aren't that many games. So this is huge. This is one of the ones that I can't wait for. You talk about San Diego. Yeah, the defensive unit holding up the way it has is the most impressive spot of what this team has done, because it's easier, and easy in air quotes because it's not easy, but it's easier to have an expansion season where your attack is really good. You spend a lot of money on Chucky Lozano, you spend a little bit less money on Anders Dreyer, you get in Luca Del Torre, and it's like, okay, I can see no matter what, you're going to score some goals. And the way that they want to play, they're going to score some goals. A goalkeeper who has never been a starter in MLS. A couple defenders we've never heard of. Patty McNair was the only one with name brand, and it was supposed to be Patty McNair and Andres Reyes as a starter. Well, Pilcher's been so good and been so dependable. The fullbacks, they are bringing in, like, Luca Bombino's been a revelation this season. Oscar Verhoeven comes in on loan, and he's playing a lot. Like, that back four and goalkeeper, and again, Jeppe Zverkov was supposed to be one of the controls in this team because of his experience and quality. But the back line, not capitulating really at any point this season, is what is most impressive and what the biggest worry was for me for them going into the season. Anders Dreyer is my MVP currently. That can still change, but he's leading that race. Chucky Lozano, we know how good he's.
For you? Who else is in that?
So for me, it's Dreyer and Messi, and we'll see what Messi does kind of down the stretch because he has those games in hand. But that's why Dreyer's still first for me. Evander was closer to them in third, but he's kind of trailed off a little bit since his form has gone bad. Martin Ojeda is right there with him now for me, so I think it goes the top two. Then you have a tier, and then those two, and then Sam Surridge, Hani Mukhtar. Those are just some guys that come to mind that are going to be in the mix, should be getting votes, but I don't think can challenge Dreyer, Messi, Evander, and maybe Ojeda at this point. So it's like Dreyer has filled so many different roles this year as well for this team. Like he can be like the second banana to Chucky Lozano sometimes. He can be the on your back shoulder winger, inside forward type of style to be scoring goals when they needed him to score goals. He can tuck in and play as like a false type of 10 where he's creating. He can drop in and help in the buildup. Like I think, like what a home run signing that guy's been, and there's not enough superlatives to say about him this season. But again, like that's the midfield, Dreyer have been kind of the story for San Diego. But the reason why their supporters shield chase good is because the defense held up. And again, I straight up did not see that coming.
Yeah, I just so you know, Tom, Dreyer scored maybe one of the best goals ever at Allianz Field. This half volley from was just,
my God, what a goal!
Was unbelievable. Like it was out of the blue. He knew what he was doing. He knew how to kind of float into the space and just hurt us hard. I like what you said about the defense. I'm curious because live Terskov was outstanding. I'm wondering if he's the key glue for these young guys, because he kind of helped make sure he guides them a little bit in terms of just being an outlet or just making sure they keep their shape. But he's probably part of why they've been able to kind of float a lot of young guys in and around him and do so well.
I think that's an excellent point, and I agree. And like he's their metronome, and for a team that is relying on possession and quick passes, like he is absolutely integral. But like you said, like even that midfield unit as a trio, you talk about Zverkov and Luca Del Torre, and then Annabelle Godoy is obviously somebody who has done so much in this league, or Valakari has been really good, and he's got some experience. But I think even more so just Zverkov and Luca Del Torre as like, this is, and then again, like I talked about with Patty McNair, these are your control players, right? Like these are the guys that supposed to make it easier for young fullbacks, like you said, and a young goalkeeper. So he's been integral. I don't have the stones to quite put him in the MVP race because we're not there as a society to put a defensive midfielder there. But he's been he's going to be on my best 11 ballot.
I think that,
He'll be on a lot of best 11 ballots for sure, and I think mine.
Manny, what's the what's the biggest lesson the Loons need to take away from the 4-2 loss against San Diego at Allianz Field back in June, going into this one coming up in 2 weeks' time?
A lot. I mean, I think it starts with, we have to make sure we're hungry to do what we do really well for 90 minutes. And that means that we have to both be disciplined and really tight defensively and not allow us to get stretched because they're so dangerous and they're so good at that. And so I really think that is going to be the key is really making sure we play with the success the way we do and we don't get caught just kind of trying to like make it a mano kind of game for the Western not top of the West. It'll be a 6-point game. We'd be 2 points behind them if we won. But ultimately, we just really need to be disciplined, hungry to, most of the good teams we've played this year, and we've done pretty well against, some of the top end teams, is when it's almost like what happened with Club America when we played them. When we're really good at deciding that we're going to play with our qualities and defend deep and then really hurt teams going forward, they just think they're going to break us down. And by like the 30th minute or so, they're saying like, oh, shoot, we haven't really had any shots. And then by like the 55th minute, they're like, we got to send more numbers forward because we should be winning this game. And then so to me, it's very similar to that. I think we just need to be not as much worried about them, but worried about how well we've played against good teams this year and make sure that we have that style implemented for the game.
I love the outlook for this game because obviously, as we said, this is a big one for Minnesota, try and get back close to San Diego for the top of the West. But also, Tom, it's two very different tactical styles going head to head.
Yeah.
A team that doesn't like possession, that shoos it away like Minnesota, and a team that loves possession to the extreme in San Diego. This one, there's stories all over the field, but I think the biggest one is the tactical variations between these two teams and how they got to their positions in the season.
Yeah, styles make fights, as they say in boxing, and this is one that's going to be super fun, where both teams, you're going to be throwing your fastball, and both teams will be like, yep, this is exactly what I want to do. This is exactly what I want to do. All right, like, here's 100 miles per hour. Hit it. If you can, good for you, and if you can't, then strike out, right? Like, so that's what I'm looking forward to most in this game, because there are no questions about what does each team want to do. Those two styles lend well for itself to play against each other, and it's just which one is gonna be successful on the day. Like you said, that there's the 4-2 San Diego win in Minnesota, and maybe there's retribution, or maybe it's a sweep. So it's a big day because San Diego could, for all intents and purposes, wrap up the Western Conference top seed with a win here, and solidify themselves in the Shield race, and as like hoping that Philly slip up. So it's huge on both ends because again, like Minnesota, crazier things have happened than if Minnesota wins this game than to be in the Shield race. Like,
have you guys to go to a game live there?
In San Diego?
Yeah.
Not yet, unfortunately. We'll see. Maybe the playoffs will bring me there, but nothing yet.
I mean, I've heard it's a great environment. That's another challenge for us in a good way.
I've heard it's not a great pitch.
Okay. Good to know.
Last year, an NWSL playoff game had to be postponed because the pitch wasn't good enough.
Yeah, they changed it. Wasn't it like 6 or 7 times since the stadium's opened? It's been a while.
There's a lot of teams that play there. Again, I'm not an expert on grass and stuff, so I'll stop there. But I think that contributes.
That'll be next week, the Groundskeeper podcast. Figure out what's going on with San Diego.
Special international break podcast.
Since we have Tom on, and we said we weren't going to talk about San Diego too much, the other piece of this, which is really hard for Minnesota, is we have one of our biggest games in club history 4 days later.
Yes.
US Open Cup semifinal, chance at a trophy. Both games, if we knock on wood, get to the final at home. So there's going to be some lineup challenges maybe for the coaching staff in terms of not only international break. We've got 6 guys on break, so Eric's going to have to follow the minutes and the loads of the guys there. And then given that you've got that game, San Diego's so big, but then 4 days later as well, it's going to be a challenging one. It's a tricky kind of week for us to figure out what kind of lineups we want to play.
For sure. And these are the weeks that, in preseason when you're doing 2 days and the actual, like, these are the weeks that you're hoping to get the privilege to be in. And I'm glad that you brought up the Open Cup semifinal. I'm talking here about, in the mix for trophies and like that. Like, I haven't even said the Open Cup yet, which is, just by nature of games, you win twice. And like you said, if you win the first one, you're home in the second one. This is the quickest way to the trophy just because of where this is in the season. So, yeah, home against Austin and then the winner of Nashville, Philly. There's a lot of good teams left in this Final Four. There will be a deserving champion. And I don't know, this would be an iconic run for Minnesota if they're able to get done.
We kept you a little long. I want to get one final thought from you.
Yeah.
U.S. men's national team in action over the next week. Obviously, international break. Thoughts on the roster that Pochettino called up and your expectations for the next week?
Whew. Interesting roster. Interesting roster. I had heard in the summer that there were some players that couldn't be called in no matter what because of other reasons. That I was like, McKennie was a player that I heard and Pochettino had said we know him, we don't need to see him in. I was kind of told that he might not have been involved in the Gold Cup this summer, even if they were allowed to call him in. So he's clearly making statements with these roster inclusions, or more conspicuously the players who aren't being called in. That is very interesting. I don't think that McKennie's World Cup spot is in doubt, but I think that this is showing that when whatever's gone on or whatever might be going on with mind games here, or whatever you want to call it, that I have a standard and I have this, the things haven't been good enough for us on the national team level. I think I don't love to always talk about snubs because, at the end of the day, it's usually we're talking about the 24th player on the roster. I know it's more important, roster players number 3 through 7, the guys who are going to be starting playing a lot. But Aiden Morris, man, I don't know what more that dude has to do to get called up. He's been phenomenal for Burrow. I believe he's got 3 straight man of the match performances for Middlesbrough. And if you're what Aiden Morris, when he left MLS, he was one of the best midfielders in the league. He's gone to Burrow, won a starting spot pretty quickly, and he's not the captain, but he was. Well, somebody I spoke to was he might be named captain this year. That's a huge honor for a foreign player to come to a championship club and after a year be in the mix to be named captain. And he's probably got to be looking at himself what more do I have to do to get called in? So that's a tough one, but we'll see what happens on the pitch. I don't have the highest expectations. The vibes aren't particularly good around this program at the moment. So hopefully some positive moments will lend to a little bit of momentum and move things forward. But I don't know, things haven't been super great.
This is where Manny usually puts on more of his fan hat than more of his MLS executive hat with the U.S. men's national team. Manny, your thoughts on what your expectations are for the U.S. over the next week?
I mean, we just have to be ready to play. These are really good. These two national teams will hurt you if you do not have a group that wants to both fight and battle, but also stay organized and compact. And there will be an intensity level that is always very high when you play against Japan and South Korea. It's never the same kind of friendly with other games because that's just the way they play. They play their national team games at a super high tempo. I'm cautiously nervous. I don't know if I'm optimistic. I'm just I'm like Tom. I can't figure out the roster. I can't. But there's a part of me that's I'm at the point now where the media doesn't believe in it. The group, there's a lot of angst between former national team, current national team players. There's a lot of but okay, let's just decide now that we're gonna grow and get better by the World Cup and see where it goes, because that's the only thing that can happen. But I hope, yeah, which is sad. But there is some nice stuff here. There's not nice stuff. I don't know. It's just. Sorry, guys.
Told you, it gets more fanish than.
No, this is good. This is good.
Buttoned up, Manny.
Let's try to go glass half full, though. I do think Pochettino is, in his own way, trying to say, I don't care where you come from. I don't care who you are.
Yep.
Be American, get on the field and fight and battle. And it might not even work this window. It might not even work in a half year. But I do still think there'll be some value when he takes the guys out in 9 months or whatever the World Cup starts. I really do think some of the stuff he's doing now is not the worst thing in the world, because it reminds people that the end all be all for the national team is the national team. And yes, guys playing at a higher level, guys contributing, just getting better individually is so important. But I go back to, I called the 2006 World Cup right after he retired, and that in Italian team, every player was a domestic player at that time. There was a value in it. And I'm not saying that every player should be domestic or that, but I do like how Pochettino is reminding people that we just got to find the value in the talent. He's got to put together, so he gets paid for, and then they got to feel hungry to represent America. And I don't care. they don't have to represent China and Japan and South Korea this window. It does feel like Tom said, it feels like it could be a disastrous window, if I'm being honest, but maybe not. Maybe this is the start of guys just fighting and scraping. This isn't like the last couple though. These are tough games. These are really, they're real national teams that tend to get to the final 16 of World Cups.
Yeah, this is an exciting time, an interesting time, and as I said, Manny tends to put on his fan hat a little bit more than when we're talking about MLS.
Some other former national team players, by the way. I think I'm pretty good about like, hey guys, we all get along and let's figure this out. It's been, I think in Tom's world, the drama has been unbelievable, and I mean, I feel for. I got the gray hair now. I didn't love the documentary just because. I think if I was giving the younger guys some advice, I would say just focus on getting better and being hungry to contribute, because all the other stuff is the noise that the media has to talk about, but it's not fake. It's real, guys. Right. We are not where we thought we were going to be going into this 26th World Cup, whether that's on all levels. That's fine. That doesn't mean in 9 months it can't be different. So
exactly.
For sure. Tom, appreciate you stopping by.
Yeah, thanks, Tom.
Go read all his work over at Gimme Sport. Go listen to him over at Soccer Wise and go watch him over on CBS Golazzo. Fun chatting with you today, Tom, and we'll chat with you a little bit later on down the road.
Appreciate it, guys. Hope to be in Minnesota some point soon.
Thanks,
Looking forward to it. Loons fans, we'll be back next week to preview, deep dive into Minnesota, San Diego for a battle for the top of the West. Thanks to the production staff, Grace Dearson, Kyle Hayward, Evan Entler for putting us on every week. We'll talk to you next week.